welcome to And This Is Why It Sucks. I couldn't let this sit for a while. Another shooting happened in Nashville, and it's kind of hit me harder than it should. Now, probably because I have some other things going in my life that are a little more emotionally charged right now. I see no point in what's been going on. And immediately there are calls for your rights to be curtailed because an idiot, leftist, woke monster went in and took 6 lives with a tool. This person was familiar with the school. This person was a former student. And this stuff keeps happening. Now, why? Now, we can sit here and wonder what the hell has happened to our society, but the fact of the matter is, we've catered to people who are mentally ill for too long. Now, I've been one of those people that have always thought that mentally ill or mental health stuff should be addressed. We're not addressing it. And our system is corrupt enough that we're going to keep seeing this stuff because it gets playing on 24-hour loop through the 24-hour news cycle. Where did we get here? How did we get here? Was it because parents were not allowed to discipline their kids? Or was it because we have generations of kids that the parents have actually checked out and aren't talking to their kids? Now, this is a 28-year-old adult female. They are 100% self-owned. But you can't tell me someone who made a manifesto didn't pop on somebody's radar, whether it's law enforcement or one of their friends, and not one of them said or did anything. Now, law enforcement's hands are limited to some degree. But they can 5150 someone and put them away for 72 hours to have them observed. During that time frame, maybe something could be done. Now, why would you want them 5150? Well, this person was trans. That means they already were on the mental health spectrum, and they was already being seen one way or another for this type of mental health issue. Now, it's increasingly obvious that we have a social contagion now on social media and the media in general that encourages people to take this path where it's a self-destructive path, where they're basically taking themselves and their entire genetic line out of a gene pool forever. Now, it sounds harsh, but think about what they're doing. It is, in fact, what's going to happen. And that's why people, like myself, are so anti-childhood transition. Because there are parts of the human condition where you're going to be awkward, where you're not going to be able to say what's on your mind, and you're going to have to deal with it. And these people don't. What they do is they go complain to their echo chambers, and then their echo chambers encourages them to take some sort of drastic action. Now, since this happened in Tennessee, and Tennessee has been a focal point for the trans issue, specifically because the Daily Wire is there, and they've been vocal anti-trans stuff. So there's been laws that have been passed in Tennessee that help protect kids. And this was probably reprisal for that type of action. The left doesn't have kids, they have yours. So they're going to purposely try to corrupt, misuse, and abuse every person they can to get their ideology to be the most widely distributed and widely accepted ideology. We're no longer at the place in time where these people can be reasoned with. These aren't your liberals from the 90s or the 2000s or the 80s that you could have a discussion about and make policy accordingly. These are people that are zealots that have no other way of thinking but that they are right, and that you have done them a great injustice, so they have to take you or something you love out of the loop. So we are back here again at a very familiar place for me, because I've been here. I've had to deal with a school shooting. Today, there'll be an after-action report on everything that happened from everyone, if they're smart. And what they'll do is find out the same thing we did. That the mentally deranged person got access to a firearm and perpetrated a horrific act. What do you do to stop it? I don't know that we can, because this has become such a dramatic issue, and it keeps happening. And I say this not because of the shootings, but we keep having mentally unstable people going off the reservation and doing stupid things, whether they're driving a car into people and thinking that they're right, or they're taking their pound of flesh out with a firearm, or they're going after your job. These people can't be reasoned with. They're the ants that are 1,001 of them coming up to the little creature that fell on the ant pile. So what do? I would tell you, based off of what my other podcast, New Mexico Black Rifle Operators Union, would tell you, stay strapped or get clapped. It's time to seriously look at why guns are not allowed in some places, because, like always, criminals don't obey laws. Murder is already a thing. Murder is already illegal. These people don't care about your assault weapons ban. They will go and get whatever they need, one way or another, legally or not legally, to perpetrate these acts. If they have time to write a manifesto to tell you what is eating at them before they go and perpetrate one of these acts, they probably are going to get away with it, because there isn't enough law enforcement engagement, and there's enough societal disengagement now that these people acting weird goes unnoticed, and they are then stuck in a self-fulfilling prophecy of death. You can't look at what happened in Tennessee and see the multiple failures, knowing what has happened in the past. You know, in my past specifically, this shooter spent 14 minutes inside a building. Again, not because law enforcement were waiting. They were trying to get to this location. This is a private school, so it's not exactly on their daily rotation to go check out. But still, two of Nashville's finest went in and took care of the threat. They didn't wait like Uvalde. But in the video, it's apparent that these people in this school did everything right. I say that because I've been in there before. They followed their training to the letter. They locked down, they disappeared, they hid. This person shot the glass out the front door, walked in, and started hunting. 14 minutes they hunted until they found a target that was suitable. Why didn't someone in the school take them out? Because they can't. Because federal law says you can't own a firearm or can't have a firearm on a school campus. And it's blatantly obvious now that the only ones that are listening to that are the law-abiding citizens and the staff and the students. Because after the fact of one of these shootings, the odds that a person is still alive that has perpetrated one of these shootings is very minimal. Because they're saying this is suicide by cop. 99% of the time. They went in there knowing they were going to die. They went in there and started killing. And the only person that stops this is someone with a gun. Yeah, the percentages are staggering. That in a situation similar to this, whether it's a school, a grocery store, whatever, those acts get perpetrated until they're engaged by someone who isn't a member of their party with a firearm. Whether they lose in the gunfight or they kill themselves because they know there's no way out. So what are we going to do? We spent $3 billion or $3 trillion on Ukraine. What could our schools get with that money? I'm just wondering because I know what happened in New Mexico after our shooting, and it's sad that I can say our shooting. But the policymakers got involved and said, oh yeah, we'll take care of you. And they were quick to give us applications to check on mental health for staff and teachers and kids so that they could tell us what was going on so that maybe they could warn us beforehand. But when it came to physically hardening the schools, they offered up the sun, the moon, and the sky to give us that security we needed back. But what ended up happening was the school ended up spending thousands, hundreds of thousands of their own money to get off the ground a security force for themselves and to harden the school so much so that it looked like it was a fortress. It wasn't, because no one listens to their advisors. Paul Tim, I think is his name. I went to one of his trainings years ago. And he talks about people take actions after an incident happens. So why, with all the focus on this being a current problem, are we not looking at the other pieces of this? Run, hide, fight. Run and hide. That's what they got down first time for the school in Nashville. They didn't fight because it's a peaceful institution. But those people willing to do something like this will give no quarter to peaceful people. So how do you stop it? We're at a place where people look for validation and they don't care about anything else. They live in their own little world, so much so that the interactions they have with the world are skewed and pushed into this weird little bubble where everyone is attacking them in their mind. And their only way out in their mind is to do something against someone so innocent that has never done anything to anyone. I have to admit that this is something that has kept me up. After the shooting in Aztec, it took me months, 6 months, if I remember right, of looking at every story I could find about a mass casualty event like this and seeing what the commonalities were. Not just so that I could know for myself, but so that I could help influence policy. Because at the time, I was the director of technology for one of these school districts. I was in charge of getting the message out to people in case of something bad like this happened, but also in case they had pickle and popcorn day. it is discerning. It is very discouraging to see, I should say, not discerning. To see that the lessons we've seen multiple times, no one's taking to heart. We still have not hardened our schools. We still do not have an actual armed response team. For these people to be hidden for 14 minutes while this person walked the halls to find a way at them. Now you can say that we need more law enforcement agents. I don't know that would have helped, because response times are still a thing. 14 minutes before law enforcement engage these people. It's not that they weren't trying to get to them this time. It's a fact of geography. And if it can happen in Nashville, and it definitely happened in New Mexico. But why was it such a different result? We lost 2 in New Mexico, in Aztec. They lost 6. Why? My guess is the response times were dramatically different. In our shooting in Aztec, law enforcement showed up within 2 minutes. And they engaged, or started to engage. What they did was shoot out a door, and that sound ended the fight. Because at the time, law enforcement agents didn't have a way to get into a lockdown building from the outside in. So they used the big key, and they did what this shooter in Tennessee did. They shot a glass door out, hit the breaker bar, and walked in. So you can talk about physical security, and you can talk about training to make sure people do what they're supposed to, and to disappear and hide and protect kids. But there's a second phase to this, and there was a second phase to our shooting too, where teachers and administrators could have repelled orders and could have stopped this from being such a horrible thing. But you can't legally. And this is where we have to start talking about those shackles that the law are for law-abiding citizens. I am past my point in life where I care about such things. My own moral code prevents me from ever doing something like this. But this is something my parents, my family, instilled on me. I don't hurt people unless I absolutely have to. I have been mentally abused, physically abused, scarred from all the trauma and stuff that have happened, and there's never been a time, even though I have access to plenty of firearms, that I thought this was a great plan to go get my pound of flesh out. Because in the end, that's what's happening with our society. These people, they're not thinking straight. She had a mental health issue. For her to come out as trans, that already puts them on a diagnosable path towards having mental issues. And we're already seeing the media hide and discourage anyone from talking about that part of it. Why? Because it's taboo to bring up things when it makes one side look like they're the ones that are always doing this. But it's the truth. And the truth has to set us free, and it has to have its day. There are too few in the House and the Senate that will take up arms and say, enough's enough. We need to do something about this. And banning the tool is not what's going to fix it. But maybe putting an armed guard there would. Maybe funding the schools enough to where they have their own security forces might. I think we're at a place in time, as I keep ruminating and talking about, where this isn't necessarily the case. That there's a lot of people that we're going to have to just find as they do bad stuff. So I would tell you, protect your kids. Definitely consider removing them from there and homeschooling them. It's difficult, I know, especially when you have teenagers who do not want to leave school, because that is where they see their friends, where all that stuff is going on that causes the drama, that causes them to go closer towards this stuff. But it's pretty apparent that schools aren't doing crap to defend our kids. And they've had plenty of time and plenty of resources that keep getting kicked their way. And they keep pushing other agendas. So at one point, does the American people realize that we've been sold a lie when it comes to public education? It used to be you needed a degree to do something, and you still do for some things. You can't be a doctor or an engineer without a degree. But I can honestly say I've never been approached, except for when I had tried to get a job with this institution, what my transcripts were, what my grades were, because there has been no job since then or before then that ever cared. And as I start my new journey with my new business, I look at this stuff in horror, knowing that it could happen again here, and it probably will. And there's very little to anything that can be done about it, because no one is having the really hard conversations and realizing that the writing's on the wall. You have to write it down, and you have to do something about it. Like, share, subscribe, be great.